Do you want to know why my green stalks look so lush and green and healthy even when the temperature outside is well over 90 degrees Fahrenheit? It's not some fancy soil or secret fertilizer that I use. It is the watering system. Hey folks, if we haven't met before, my name is Tara and I garden in the Bay Area. And if you've been wondering whether you should buy the GreenStalk watering system or whether you should DIY it, then hang tight. We're going to be talking about the most frequently asked questions that I've heard about the GreenStalk watering system that I think will help you make the decision as to whether you want to buy it or whether you just want to try and do it yourself. So let's start with the basics. How does the GreenStalk watering system actually work? Well, it's a pretty clever system actually. There's this top reservoir which is kind of like a giant funnel, and water flows through it through a central hole all the way through into gray discs that are laid out in each tier. And each of those gray discs has little holes along the edge, and so do each of these tiers. And then the water flows through the middle and fills up those gray saucers which start to drip into each tier, and then the tier above also drips into the tier below. So the whole system kind of works to irrigate the entire tier from top to bottom, which actually is the distinguishing feature of this planter. No other planter on the market that I know of today has this feature where it's able to evenly water all the tiers if set up right. So that's probably one of the greatest innovations in the GreenStalk, and it is absolutely fantastic when done right. So the next question is, how much water should you fill in the top reservoir? Now, what GreenStalk recommends is that you fill up the top reservoir until the water starts to drip from the bottom. That way you know that all of those little gray discs in the middle have been full and they're starting to drip into the tiers, and then the water is sufficient that it's coming out through the bottom. Now, before I installed my irrigation system, I actually found that filling up this 3-gallon watering can and using it to fill up the top reservoir was just about right to water my entire GreenStalk. Your experience might be a little bit different, but that's what works for my GreenStalks. And remember, the height of the GreenStalk matters as well. I keep my GreenStalks roughly about 4 tiers high because I find that that works best for me. So a little less than 3 gallons is what I use right now, but I am using an irrigation system, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. But we'll get to that in just a little bit. And here's a good one. How often should I water the GreenStalk? The reason why I say it's a good one is because the answer is, it depends. I recently became a Master Gardener volunteer with our county's program, and one of the things that they always advise us to do when we are asked questions is to almost always preface it with, it depends. And the reason is it really depends on so many factors, the answer to gardening questions. And for GreenStalks, it depends on your climate. Is it hot? Is it cold? Has it been raining? You really need to kind of gauge how often your GreenStalk needs to be watered, and usually your plants will tell you when they start to look a little bit droopy, and then you'll kind of get into the rhythm of it. And of course that rhythm will change as the weather warms up or as the weather cools down, as you get rains, and so on and so forth. So kind of keep an eye on your GreenStalks. GreenStalks do need to be cared for, and the more that they're cared for, the better they perform for you. And I love caring for my GreenStalks, so I pay very close attention to them. I thought I'd come on this side and give you a little bit of a different vantage point of my GreenStalks, and I'll do a quick spin around and show you what's going on. But another question that I hear frequently is, should I use a hose or should I use a watering can to fill up my reservoir on the GreenStalk? And really, you can use either. It doesn't really matter. You just need to make sure that you fill up the top reservoir quite quickly so that the water can seep through and fill up all the saucers evenly. And then, of course, the next question is, how much pressure should I use if I'm using a hose? Now, you don't want to use fire engine hose kind of pressure, but you do want it to go at a good clip. It creates that kind of vortex effect and then flows through. And so you do want a good steady stream. Now, there is one exception though. When you first set up your GreenStalks and your soil is really, really dry, if you go too fast, then it starts to flow through the bottom. The soil is almost hydrophobic. It's resisting the water, and it just kind of flows through. And that happens with soil in the garden as well. If it's not moist, if it's hydrophobic and resisting water, water finds the quickest path to go straight through without really seeping in and watering everything. So you do need to water kind of slowly, I recommend, and twice maybe or 3 times in a slow manner until all of the tiers are watered. And even better, make sure that your soil is moist before you stack the next tier when you're building your GreenStalk. That way you can be sure you don't have any dry spots anywhere in your soil. And then you won't have that problem where the water just flows right through. All right, let's take a look at the GreenStalks and see how they're doing. I think the last time I showed you guys these GreenStalks, these bean plants were just real tiny. I had sowed them from seed on May 30th. Today is July 15th. So yeah, it's been 6 weeks maybe. And I've been harvesting beans every day. There aren't any large ones today because I harvested all of them. But there is tons and tons of beans coming. And they grow really, really fast. I mean, I'll be able to harvest a full-size bean tomorrow. That's how fast it grows. So that's my bean tower for the most part. I did try to put some marigolds in, but looks like they're being shaded out completely. This one over here has a variety of things. It's got tomatoes and pepper plants, and I put these metal mesh bags because the squirrels are coming and taking my tomatoes away. In spite of it, I saw one nice ripe tomato today that was bitten by the squirrel. So best to harvest your tomatoes just as they're starting to blush, kind of starting to get that yellow hint in them, because you wait a day longer, the squirrels will get them if that's your problem. So yeah, by the way, look at these peppers. Now, in a previous video, I called them Jimmy Nardellos. These are not Jimmy Nardellos. I have never seen Jimmy Nardellos a foot long. I don't know what these peppers are, but I sure as heck am excited to see them ripen. And I don't even know whether they're hot peppers or sweet peppers, but I'm going to find out and I'll let you guys know. And I've got a couple of tomato plants actually growing in this bottom tier, which is a terrible idea because they're both feeding off of the soil and competing like crazy. So I just have to keep a real close eye on this tomato plant and its peer on the other side because they are fighting for nutrients as well as water. And that's another thing that you need to worry about when your summer days get really, really hot. Some of these plants are really greedy, like tomato plants, and frankly, pepper plants are pretty greedy too, but tomatoes are worse. So they will suck up all the soil. They will suck up all the water, and then they will deprive the other plants in the tier. So yeah, you got to balance it out somehow and figure that out if you can while you're planning the GreenStalk. I've got more tomatoes over here with my mesh bag. The squirrels get all my squash plants, by the way. All those over there, they're for the squirrels. They're not for me. And I've started harvesting eggplants in different parts of my garden, but my GreenStalk eggplants are a little bit behind. But I'll be getting eggplants pretty soon. Now, one thing about these GreenStalks over here is they are actually on the shady side of my greenhouse. And of course, I've got this oak tree over here that shades all of them. But these GreenStalks in the front here get plenty of sun. And I see a distinct difference between these GreenStalks versus the GreenStalks on the other side. For example, I've got okra going over here. This is a Cajun jewel okra. I've never grown it before, excited to grow it, but this is growing really fast. The ones on the other side are a quarter of this size. So sunlight and how much sunlight these plants get really makes a huge difference. So pay attention to that. Speaking of sunlight, it is causing my video not to focus properly. Anyway, back here. So yeah, make sure that when you plant up your GreenStalks, you position them so that they get maximum sunshine. Makes a huge difference to the growth. But yeah, these GreenStalks that are getting the sun are having the time of their life. I also thought I'd step into my greenhouse real quick because in the last video I promised I'll show you what I've got going on here, and I did not yet. I am growing more than just GreenStalk stuff over here. I'm actually growing a lot of perennial flowers. Haven't quite yet started my fall garden seedlings. I've got about at least 12 weeks of warm weather still left. So I'll wait another month before I start my fall weather seedlings. But I have got beautiful Sweet William flowers, peonies that I'm growing from seed, cilantro. I just harvested all my cilantro, and I'm so happy that I'm able to grow cilantro in summer. I'm growing them in these terracotta pots, and that keeps the soil a lot cooler. They're growing in my greenhouse, but they're growing quite nicely, and they're not complaining about bolting or anything like that. And then I've got stuff that I'm growing from cuttings. These are dianthus. I've got these are petunias. Like I said, I grew from seed and they're growing really, really well. Try growing petunias from seed. You'll be surprised at how easy they are to grow. I think even easier than cuttings. And here are some basil plants. Now, these basil plants are started from cuttings that I took to, get some pizza leaves, and I just can't throw cuttings away, you guys. I just pop it in some soil, and next thing you know, I've got a million basil plants. Anyway, that's just me. Do you guys have that problem where you can't kill anything? It's a real problem. Anyway, I've got some more tomato plants growing, you guys. So I grew micro tomatoes this year, and I saved seeds. And then I had a bunch of extra seeds that I just sort of threw a mix of them. So I've got a whole bunch of micro tomatoes. Now, these will grow really fast, and they will produce pretty quickly, and the tomatoes ripen quickly as well. So great for a second harvest. Though I will tell you, micro tomatoes, they're a little bit of an oddity to me. They don't produce as much, but they are super cute, so I enjoy growing them. And then I've got a few more things over here. Snapdragons. Snapdragons are my new love. I am trying to grow them in all the colors I can because they are just simply gorgeous plants. And they are biennials, so they will grow and produce beautifully the first year and even better the second year. And then they'll drop seed. So you plant them once, you have them forever, at least in the Bay Area. I've got some rampicant tromboncino squash. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get this in my garden soon and get a harvest from them. The nice thing about this tromboncino squash is that you can grow it as a winter squash as well as a summer squash. So if you harvest it young, it's kind of like zucchini. If you wait a while, you can actually get some winter squash and store it. It's fantastic squash. I highly recommend it. All right, let's go back and talk about watering. So another question that I get is, how can I be sure that the water is flowing evenly and getting to all of the tiers? Now, it's really something that you need to observe. You need to kind of feel the pockets to make sure that they're moist. If you stick your finger in a pocket and you feel moisture about 2 inches down, you're usually good. And also the plants will tell you if they start to look droopy and you're noticing that they're looking droopy every day in the same tiers, maybe there's a problem. Maybe there's a blockage. Maybe your GreenStalk is not on a perfectly stable, flat surface. All of these things cause the GreenStalk to not function as well as it should. And stability or the preciseness of the alignment of the GreenStalk and the need for it to be perfectly aligned. In fact, use a spirit level when you set it up to make sure that each tier is perfectly flat. If you don't do that, even if there's a slight tilt in one of the tiers, it magnifies itself as you go upward, and then the entire GreenStalk becomes kind of like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? And it'll water more heavily on one side and not so much on the other side. So these are all things that really you need to observe your GreenStalk. And unfortunately, if there are any clogged discs, or even if the GreenStalk is a little bit crooked and not on a stable surface, it's kind of difficult to change things once your GreenStalks are really full, like the GreenStalks behind me. These are my raspberry GreenStalks, and I've not been able to prune them or do anything to them because I've got birds building nests in them. So yeah, but what I wanted to tell you is they are completely being fed only by the irrigation system. They are not getting a drop of water in the pockets, and they are functioning beautifully for the past, 3-4 months without any watering at all in the pockets from me. So the system works really well as long as it's perfectly flat and stable, as long as it's not crooked at all, as long as there are no clogged discs. And unfortunately, the only way to find out is to keep an eye on it, which you need to do. Check on your GreenStalks every day, and they will reward you for the care and love. Anyway, let's talk about some more things. So I just noticed another reason why the water flows right through your GreenStalk. I forgot one item. This is actually really common. People sometimes forget the gray disc when you're stacking it. I don't know how to make you remember it. I've done it myself, but if you miss inserting the gray disc, it really messes up your watering system and causes uneven watering. So if you have an extra disc, it's not because GreenStalk, it's likely not because GreenStalk sent you an extra disc. It's probably because you forgot to put one of them in. So yeah, double check that. And here's a good one. Do you really need to water the pockets, or is it sufficient to water from the top? It's sufficient to water from the top. Really, it is. I will tell you though that sometimes certain pockets, like I said, dry out more because, or certain tiers dry out more because you've got thirstier plants. So keep a watch out for that. So ideally you should water just from the top and you're good. Another question, should you water the pockets if you have seeds or seedlings? Absolutely you should. Seeds, if they dry out when they're in the process of germinating, they will stop germinating. They're done for. So absolutely make sure that your soil is consistently moist, and you can't really rely on the watering system to keep the top of your tiers moist. So I actually have a video where I have installed drip irrigation in each tier to address this problem of keeping the top of the soil moist. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link to it at the end of this one. But the other thing is seedlings. Seedlings also do not have roots that are long enough to dig into the center where most of the moisture is. So those little roots, when they're still in the top part of the soil, they may not get sufficient water. So make sure that you water your seeds at least once or twice a day. Come and check on your seeds and make sure that the soil is nice and moist so that they germinate. And then for your seedlings, make sure that at least once a day you water from the pockets to help them get to the point where their roots are long enough to dig in and fend for themselves. Now I keep pointing to these tiny seedlings. The reason why these are still seedlings and not large plants is not because of water deprivation due to lack of water. It's because of water stealing that is going on by this large tomato plant over here. Yep, it's a big one, and it is taking all the moisture, and I have to constantly look to make sure that these pockets are moist, but I'm not doing a sufficient enough job, so I have a feeling these are not going to make it. Oh well, I'm getting some good tomatoes though. Dang, look how dry the soil is. And the tier below is nice and moist. So you can tell that it's working, the water is flowing through. But these things are just not getting enough water and not getting enough nutrition. Dang you, tomato plant. Okay, here's a good one. Interesting one, actually. Should I plug the central hole while I'm watering to make sure that I fill up the reservoir? No, you don't want to do that. The system has been carefully engineered so that if you pour water at a good clip and fill up the top reservoir, it should be able to fill all the discs. So no, don't do that. And also, do not make the holes any larger if you think that the water is not flowing fast enough. It has, again, there's many hours of research that has gone into the engineering of the watering system. If you make the holes larger, it's on you. The warranty will be voided. So it works really well. You don't have to enlarge the holes. You don't have to plug the central hole. Just do as the instructions say, fill the top reservoir till it's full, and then till the water starts dripping from the bottom, and you should be good to go. Oh, here's one. Should I add fertilizer to the watering system? Absolutely. That is the best way to fertilize your GreenStalks. So when I'm fertilizing my GreenStalks, I actually fill up my little watering can with 3 gallons of water. I put the liquid fertilizer in it, and then I fill it up in the top tier, and then I might skip a watering session because I want the fertilizer to stay in the GreenStalk and not just keep flowing out because I've added too much water on the top. So yeah, substitute one of your watering sessions for a fertilizer session, if you will, and use liquid fertilizer mixed into the water. Okay, now the big question. Should you buy GreenStalk's watering system or should you DIY it? And before we get there, I just wanted to let you know that I am a GreenStalk affiliate. And so if you use my affiliate link, which is always in the description, and my code, which is GreenLove10, you will get an additional $10 discount off your order. And there's actually an irrigation sale going on right now on all things watering. It's a really great sale. I've never seen the GreenStalk irrigation so low in price, so check it out. And the GreenStalk watering system actually comes with the lid as well. So if you buy the GreenStalk watering system, you will get all the components, and you'll get the lid, and you'll get the vertical tubes as well, which feed into the GreenStalk. Now, they do sell a components bag, which contains all the parts that you need, but does not have the lid. And it also does not have the vertical tubes. So you'll have to buy the vertical tubes separately if you buy the components bag. And the reason for this is because many people actually have the lid already. And then when they buy the watering system, they get yet another lid, and many people don't want that. So GreenStalk is providing this as a resource for you. If you don't want to get the lid, you can just buy the components and you'll save a few dollars. But should you buy the GreenStalk watering system? That's the question, right? All right, full disclaimer, I actually DIY'd all the watering systems for my GreenStalk. Let me show you what I did. Let me take you up close. So this is the back of one of my GreenStalk planters, and here is the irrigation system. So I've got the tube that comes from the bottom that connects to the main distribution line, and this connects to my hose. And this thing has a little on-off valve thing where I can increase or decrease the flow or shut it off completely. And you'll see this little tube over here. This is my irrigation that I put into each tier to make sure those pockets are watered. So I'll put a link to the video where I did this. But my system, other than this DIY part where I'm doing the irrigation in each tier, my system is exactly pretty much the same as GreenStalks. It's not as pretty, but it's almost exactly the same. Okay, so let me give you my honest opinion as to whether or not you should buy the irrigation system. Now, I like doing DIY stuff. I like shopping around for parts. I like saving money for sure. And I have a husband who I can ask for help if I kind of run into a bind. He can pretty much fix anything, like literally anything. So when I installed my DIY irrigation for my GreenStalks, I had a little bit of his help. And I also did a lot of shopping around to find the best deals on parts. And I have several GreenStalks. I have 11 as of today, and I'm actually getting one more. So I'll have 12 GreenStalks. So I get some economies of scale, if you will, by buying in bulk. So the couplers that you need to connect the irrigation tubes together, the little on-off valves, all of that stuff, if you buy in bulk, you get a better deal. But if you've got only like 1 or 2 or 3 GreenStalks, you may not get that economy of scale. So I have a friend, actually a really good friend, who's a gardener who has 3 GreenStalks, and she's not exactly the DIY type. And my advice to her was buy the GreenStalk system. It's everything in one package, and she also needed the lid, so get the lid as well. So it really worked out well for her to buy the GreenStalk system for the 3 GreenStalks that she had. Now, if you've got a dozen GreenStalks like me, you might want to consider DIYing it. But even so, if you're not the DIY type person and if you don't like shopping around for parts, then maybe you just want to buy the GreenStalk system. I will put a list of all the parts that I used for my GreenStalk setups if you want to go the DIY route. I'll put that in the description. And then a couple more things. The GreenStalk system is nicely coordinated. It's mostly that sleek black. If you shop around, you may get parts that sometimes, like there are some brands that sell brown connectors, and so you're going to have to figure out how to nicely color coordinate those things if it matters to you. GreenStalk has done all the homework for you already. So the other thing also is the spout on the top. Let me show you mine. Yeah, this spout, it's just a little piece of distribution tubing that I've cut out. GreenStalk has a nice little sleek kind of spout thing that they sell. And then the other thing also is these little clips that hold the tubing in place. I actually bought those separately from GreenStalk, and they come with the irrigation kit if you buy it. If you don't mind them sort of looping and sagging like these are over here, then you don't really need it, but these actually hold them nicely in place. Okay, so just one more thing about GreenStalk's flash sales. When they have sales on specific items, like sometimes they have sales on the spinners, the movers, the watering system like they've got going on right now, those sales are probably the best price that you can get all year. They recently had a sale on like a lot of items in the GreenStalk store. They had the made in the USA or something, grown in the USA sale, and the watering system was on sale, but I think it was $29. Right now it's like 25 bucks. So it's a really great deal if you want to get it right now. And they also have $75 as the cutoff for free shipping. So you'll need to get 3 of them in order to qualify for free shipping, but even that will be slightly below, so you'll have to get another small item. You can get those labels, are really cute. I think they're like $3, or you can get the GreenStalk magazine, which always has a good code that you can use for some surprise gifts, or you can get the GreenStalk seed houses, are a great small item to get as well. So there's lots of things that you can choose from. Here's the good part is, if you're able to cross the $75 limit in purchases, then of course you get free shipping with this particular sale. You can also use my GreenLove10 discount code and get another $10 off. And that doesn't count towards your shipping. So you will still get free shipping, even though you'll be paying only $65 or thereabouts. So yeah, definitely, if you're getting 3 watering systems, take advantage of that. Buy a little small something and then use my discount code and you will get free shipping, and you will get $10 off as well. So let me know in the comments below, are you a DIYer for your watering system, or are you going to buy the GreenStalk watering system? Either way is fine, but I'd love to know who are the DIY types like me. So anyway, hope you found this useful, and I will put a link to my video where I talk about how I do the irrigation for each tier if you're interested in doing that, the drip irrigation. And check out my curated playlist with all of the GreenStalk videos that I've got curated to date. And I also do live streams on the first Saturday of every month at 10 a.m. Pacific. And it's always on the topic of GreenStalks. So I hope to see you at one of the upcoming live streams and chat in the comments with you live. Until next time, folks, live green and love your greens.